All right, everybody, let's get this started. Thank you so much for joining me once again for another Invent Global Esports Conference panel. My name is Nick Durazio, and this is our fourth panel, and we have an awesome lineup of people joining us. So before I get started, I just want to shout out to our sponsors. HyperX for making this panel possible. I'm using this amazing HyperX mic right here, and it is so great. I can mute it with just the tap of a button. So thanks again, HyperX, for sending us this cool stuff. But who wants to just hear me talk? Let's introduce our awesome panelists. So why don't we start from left to right? Matt, how are you doing today, man? Can you give the audience just a quick slug line, who you are, what are you doing here today?
Yeah, I'm Clockwork. I played quite a few games, I guess, at a high level. I started with TF2, and then I was in Overwatch League, most notably for a season, and then I started coaching, messing around different games pretty much my whole career.
I think that might have been the most modest description of Clockwork's like FPS achievements. I'm just gonna say. So
just a modest guy.
Yeah, just a modest guy. Well, thank you so much for being here. Let's move to the right. Ben, aka Fish Sticks. Here you are, starting tournaments and starting all this awesome stuff. How are you, man? Oh no, Ben, you're muted. Muted. Disaster. Oh.
I also have this beautiful HyperX mic.
Oh, beautiful.
But I actually pressed the button that muted it, so
wow,
that was my fault.
Destroyed.
Well, so it's a really exciting time because every time a brand new FPS game comes out, the vultures from every single other FPS community kind of descend from every direction, which Clockwork is very well aware of, and I love this time in FPS games. Yeah,
exactly. Vulture. I love that.
I find it to be actually one of the most exciting times. But yeah, my name is Ben. You might know me from being a longtime Twitch employee. Was at the founding team of Twitch back in 2011. Was with the company for 7+ years. I'm now the CEO of a company called Juked, Juke.gg. We're trying to reinvent how people discover and watch esports by aggregating all that stuff into one place.
It's amazing.
Nick loves it. You should check it out. Yeah. But generally, I've been an FPS guy for like 20 years, for essentially my entire life. So happy to be here.
Yeah. A Juke.gg, aka my homepage. It really is like the best way to. If you're trying to see what's happening in esports, it's an awesome tool. Moving forward, Derrick Charmer Oswalt. We actually just met today before this call, but I've been a freelance esports person myself for many years, so I would really interested to hear your contribution to this. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So my name is Derrick, but I'm mostly known as Charmer. I come from a card game and a strategy game background. I covered the Elder Scrolls Legends. I've covered Magic Arena, covered Legends of Runeterra a lot recently. I was a caster for the Elder Scrolls Legends Master Series for the very few artifact tournaments that existed and were ran, but I did cover that as well. And I've recently fallen in love with many of the auto battlers, so Teamfight Tactics is also right up my alley. And even though I don't have a very strong FPS background, I have to say I've absolutely fallen in love with Valorant as of late. So that's kind of captured my heart as well.
Yeah, and actually, a part of why we're having this panel is because Riot's making a lot of games other than just Valorant, right? I come from a fighting game background, and I'm most excited about Project L. So I'm sure we will hear also what you think about some of their other games. Most notably, I believe they're coming with a tabletop game, which would be interested.
Yeah, Tellstones.
Yeah, and last but surely not least, Tiny Kate, aka Caitlin. How are you, Kate?
Hi, I've been playing Valorant
And you just recently competed. And you just recently competed in the very first all-female Valorant Cup, correct?
I did. So I'm probably the best person in this call.
Yep.
At Valorant, I would say. So yeah, that was pretty cool to do. It's my first tournament, and I'm old now, so
but
really just happy to be here.
And still, even though it was your first tournament, your team got a second place finish, and there was how many teams playing? I think 16 or something. Yeah. 6?
I don't know.
There was 6 something.
It was all girls, and that's really cool. So yeah, but we got second place.
Awesome. Well, Kate has been a long time just fragger. She's been playing CS:GO probably longer than I've been playing anything that has to do with guns. So I'm really glad that we have some experts on the panel. Now, that being said, before we get started into this whole discussion, I think the best place to start is something that Fishstick said, right? He mentioned every time there's a new FPS game, the vultures come out. And I think that's just a really interesting, not only a statement, but I think it will be a big part in how Riot's new roadmap will affect the esports industry. Obviously, Riot is known for making esports with quite a lot of money and importance behind them. Everyone wants to be the next Faker, right? So can you imagine being the next Faker of Valorant? How real do you think that testament is that people will jump ship from their other games? Can we actually predict to see Overwatch League players just stop playing Overwatch? Can we see a CS:GO players stop? I'd be really interested in your guys' opinion of that. And I guess we can just start with you, Fishsticks. It was your kind of idea.
Sure, I think it depends on how healthy their game is. If everyone who plays those tier 2, tier 3 FPS games, I think there's a good chance we might see a lot of them try and jump over. But the rumors of Overwatch League's demise are greatly exaggerated. I think the game is going to be healthy for a long time. I think that there's plenty of investment. I highly doubt that you're going to see a lot of Overwatch League players leaving as an example. I think another thing to point out, and take this how you will, but a lot of the time it's these old guard players from all these different games. They think they're going to be the best, but that generally doesn't actually happen. It's generally a new wave of players that ends up being the dominant ones. So it's kind of a risky proposition to say, hey, I have this background in a different game. I'm just going to switch and immediately be successful, because history says the chances are really not any better than anyone else that's brand new to that game. Of course, FPS background does help a bit. But yeah, I look, Counter-Strike is 20 years old. It's doing better than ever. I doubt we're going to see a single notable player drop Counter-Strike and switch to Valorant, at least not anytime soon. I don't expect that to happen at all. But if you're looking at the kind of tier 2 games, tier 3 games, that's totally, everyone's going to give it a shot. If they're not on a sponsored player on a sponsored team, they're going to give it a shot.
Yeah, I actually saw something interesting posted today. Apparently CS:GO finally overtook Dota 2 in a Twitch viewership, and that hasn't happened for a long, long time. So, Matt, I'd actually be curious to follow up something that Fishstick said. You've been playing tons of Valorant, and I'm sure you've been playing with some CS:GO pros, right? You're definitely part of that fragger community that I will never be a part of. Why don't you invite me to? I'm kidding. But have you seen or have you experienced as a pro Overwatch player yourself? Do you think people will make the switch? Have you seen CS:GO players fall in love with this game?
I think it really depends. You can highlight what Fishstick said before. I think it really depends on what tier they're playing. I think a lot of people from especially tier 2 Overwatch, playing tier 2 Overwatch is not really. That's basically playing TF2, honestly, in terms of sponsorship money and stuff. So if you don't see yourself going very far in something like that, same goes for CS:GO. Maybe you've been trapped in a tier 2, tier 3 type scene for a really long time, and for whatever reason you can't quite get out. Then I think those players would be a large part of the demographic of people who switch over to Valorant, I think. But there are definitely a lot of CS:GO players playing. They're trying it out. I guess they're weighing their options at this point, because the games are pretty similar. So
Yeah. So Kate,
yeah.
Kate, you said this was your first tournament that you competed in Valorant, right? And you had a great time. It was a blast. I watched that tournament, and I couldn't help but notice that it was a lot of women's first time competing, especially even some of the winning team. It was their first time competing. Do you think this is a trend? Will we see more and more of this, you think?
I hope so. I know that a lot of those girls have played CS at a competitive level. But I really hope that it felt like the entry level for tournament play is just a little, I don't know, it's brand new, so it's not like CS and that, but I think that it'll definitely open up more opportunities for all
Yeah.
kinds of levels and players.
Yeah, I think a Riot's decision to kind of take it easy in terms of trying to establish any big, giant corporate esport first, I think is a very, very smart move. As someone who has been covering a lot of esports in the past 10 years, especially the Overwatch League, I think I have a kind of unique perspective of seeing both the advantages and the disadvantages. And I think one of the advantages is what you saw with that tournament. You know, that type of tournament probably wouldn't have gotten the attention and the views if there was already right out the gate something that Riot was putting on, you know? So a shout out to that. That's a good move. Now, for the freelancer, right, there is a whole new group of fans and eyeballs that are possibly looking at content around Valorant or even content around Legends of Runeterra about all of this new stuff. So, Charmer, I'm interested in two questions. One, have you ever really been a huge fan of Riot's IP? And two, has that changed since you now see probably in the next 2 years their IP is going to dominate a lot of the PC gaming discussion?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty safe to say that I've been a fan of Riot's IP. My tag, my handle Charmer, comes from a time many years ago when I was maining Ari as my League of Legends account. So that's where my name comes from. I've been a huge fan of Riot for a long time. They're very good at establishing their intellectual property, cultivating it, everything from character design, music. That's one of the things I noticed immediately about Valorant. It's got a great musical score. I think there's only like 3 or 4 tracks right now, but every one of them gets me thumping. I want more immediately. And I don't see that going away anytime soon. I know that one of the hot button topics I've seen pop up a few times is that they don't want lore to be a thing in Valorant. I don't need lore in my first person shooter, but I think Riot's smart, and that's a selling point. It's a selling point for skins. It's worked for years for them with League of Legends. Obviously, those same characters transfer over to the other games, right? Legends of Runeterra, Teamfight Tactics. But I think that they're going to capitalize on that as well with Valorant, and I don't see their IP dipping in any way, shape, or form in the next couple of years. If anything, it's going to be stronger than ever.
And you know, I would that's a really good point. And you think that Riot is like smart enough to not listen to those people saying I don't want lore, because from my perspective, it seems as if the more correctly translated fan opinion of I don't want lore is I don't want this to become like Overwatch did, right? Like I don't want there to be this huge focus on lore over gameplay. I don't want to be in the middle of a GOATS meta and Overwatch is releasing comic books about a character's backstory, right? I know that was something that a lot of people were frustrated with. So that's kind of the next topic I'd like to move on to, because whereas Riot is doing so great, I feel as if all of the buzz about them, the elephant in the room it creates, well, what happened to Blizzard? Because we all used to be on the Blizzard bandwagon. Overwatch was king. They were coming out with all this stuff. And then a series of really unfortunate PR moves, and it seems as if now, I swear to God, I don't want to be talking about Riot constantly, but my last podcast was about Riot. Everything's about Riot because they're just doing so much. So I'm curious, do you guys think that there is a chance this game will start to go through some of the same pains and groans that Overwatch did? Do you think that the problems that Overwatch experiences, it's just the modern generation of gamers that demand something, or do you think it's something that Valorant can avoid? And I guess maybe I'll start this conversation by pointing out Raze, a very controversial hero currently in Valorant, has kind of split the community in two in terms of where is the design of this game headed. Is this going to be a tactical-based shooter, or is there going to be rockets and explosions? So anyone can chime in if you feel the most passionate about that. Do you think Valorant is going to have the same problems that Overwatch does?
Well, I mean, already the game is filled with smoke constantly.
Yeah.
I'll say that as a player, that there are some issues, but like generally, I think one thing that's really funny about this whole conversation about Raze is that 3 days ago everyone's like Raze is OP.
Yep.
Then 2 days ago everyone's saying it's Sona or
Sova.
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 Okay, I don't know how I screwed that up. And now people are saying, no, it's actually Sage. So, like, there's a lot of really strong characters in this game. I feel like it's pretty well balanced. There's actually no characters that are not at least have some merit to them. So,
well, Summit 1G would say something different if he were here, right?
Yeah.
A Raze is actually not that unbalanced if you have ears and a brain. Like, that's the biggest thing. Like,
yeah.
I think the most problematic hero that I've seen so far is like maybe like Sova or like Cypher or something like that. Like any of the heroes that have like a lot of information, like cameras and wall hacks, and they can just like see you doing whatever. Like those, I think, are the most like problematic ones. The ones that are kind of like the most analogous to like Overwatch, when you're like, what is happening here? Like, why? Like, am I getting wall hacked or something, for instance? You know?
Yeah.
But I think like the rest of the game, like, I don't know, there's no shields, you know, which is like a huge disparity between Overwatch and this game, where, you know, you're never safe. Like, you shoot someone, they're no longer there. You know,
They're no longer there.
They're no longer there.
Well,
So,
you know, I think for sure, and we saw this with Overwatch, and this conversation just made me realize I think this is going to happen. I'm already predicting, even in this conversation, there is going to be a harsh divide between the competitive community and those who play the game because it's the newest FPS and it's super great and drops enabled. Boy, I got it, right? Because that group, Kate, thinks that Raze is very, very imbalanced. That group cannot stand getting rocketed because maybe they don't have a brain or ears, right? So I think that there is definitely going to be further discussions, because I know that at my level of play, no one thinks Cypher is so good. Like, no one is sitting there thinking, oh my god, Cypher's incredible. No, because at my level of play, no one's talking. There is no comms. You can't really do anything with Cypher if you don't have a team, right? Meanwhile, Raze is first picked, like, constantly. Like, it is a rush to get the hero that can get a rocket, right? So I think that's really interesting. And from a content creator perspective, I think it will be interesting to see, you know, how that, like, which is there going to be a greater demand for? Is there going to be a greater demand for the type of content that Clockwork and Fishsticks consume? Or is there going to be a greater demand for the type of content that I consume? And this is, you know, like an open question. Do you guys think there's going to be more casual Valorant players or more semi-competitive ones?
I think it's going to be both, personally.
Yeah.
I think that Valorant's going to end up mirroring League of Legends in many ways, because there's something for everybody with that game. Your skill gap between, you know, folks like me who have old man hands and we just don't have that kind of reaction time, and top level players, the game is still enjoyable to both groups. And the same is said for Valorant. I know I'm proof, because I am not a great FPS player. I hold my own with, you know, my group of friends, but Caitlyn, for example, would probably curb stomp me. Just, that's the reality of it. But I enjoy Valorant. I've been playing till 4 or 5 a.m. since, you know, the beta launched, and I have no intent to stop anytime soon, despite the gap, the difference. I think that your complaints will vary, just like in League of Legends. There's folks who, you know, if you are in silver or gold, likely complain about certain champions that the pros just don't lose any sleep over. And I think the same thing is ultimately going to happen with Valorant. And I think Riot has a lot of experience with cultivating that kind of, you know, experience for players of all skill sets.
So I'm going to ask this next question to you, Fishsticks, because it has to do with, I don't know, maybe the strength of an esport in terms of its ability to pull in viewers and numbers, right? This is just a quick story about a Heroes of the Storm player called Psalm. Psalm was a very, very skilled player. Everyone knew that he was extremely skilled, but Heroes of the Storm wasn't necessarily the biggest game. It had various problems, and it wasn't really that popular, and there was certainly no millionaires playing. Fast forward to Psalm switching to Fortnite, and I think he either got second or third place in the Fortnite World Cup. And, you know, like, all of a sudden, overnight, Psalm has won the esports dream. Now, someone like me who has been watching Psalm ever since he's playing, I always knew the guy was incredibly talented. Anyone who has ever played with him said, oh yeah, he like just picked the wrong game. If Psalm went pro in League, this would be a whole different story. So, that being said, do you think there's a chance that the people who do well in Valorant are going to be complete complete newcomers. I mean, these are people who we've maybe never heard of. Maybe they've been playing a tier 4, tier 5 esport, or maybe this is their first esport. They're a young, 17 to 19-year-old. Do you think there's a chance that they will just run away with this Valorant, esports scene, or does the old guard have a chance?
I mean, there's absolutely no reason why the old guard doesn't have a chance. They do. Of course they do. And they probably have a leg up. I think the thing that always happens, though, is when you open up to a wide audience of tens of millions of potential players, you're just going to see new talent. It's just opening up the talent pool to a level that it's never really been at before. So, I mean, I think that we definitely will see some, probably some tier 2 Overwatch people do really well. We'll probably see some do well. We'll probably see some Counter-Strike guys do well. But I think if you just look at the macro scale of like tens and tens and tens of millions of new people are going to play this game, this is going to be a game played by like 100 million people in the next year. That the chances are there's going to be brand new people that wipe the floor with. So I mean, I think that's the right way to think about it. It's not really like having previous experience could hurt you. I think that it only can help you for the majority of cases, although I come from arena shooters where you can run and shoot, and I have had to learn how to stop and shoot, which has been interesting. So I just think it's just a matter of scale that's just going to mean new talent.
So Kate, you probably have the most recent experience because you come from a CSGO background, right? Like you've been playing these type of shooters for some time. So do you think that some of the players that I know played in the All Women's Cup, they varied in experience level? There are some really experienced shooters there. So do you think, I guess, we will see more new players like yourself in Valorant continue competing?
I do, but I think it's harder. Like, I think that people that play CS and have a lot of experience in FPSs are going to have much more of a leg up because it really feels, I think it feels a lot like 1.6 kind of movement-wise and everything, and I think that's given older players, they're like, oh my god, it feels just like this game I used to play. I'd like to see new people compete, but I think that it doesn't feel so much like an entry-level FPS game to me.
Oh, yeah. I've definitely heard of Overwatch players, and sorry to interrupt, but I've definitely heard of Overwatch players who they've gotten the drop, and these are just casual players and friends, and then immediately are like, wait, what? This isn't anything I thought that the trailer looked like. The trailer looked like a bunch of cool heroes and cool abilities. Why am I sneaking around, and why do I die immediately every round, right?
Yeah.
It's tactical. Like, you have to, it's not just like, not that this is not against you, Clockwork, or anybody that plays Overwatch, but like running in and just like all of these abilities happening at one time, like you really have to, I don't know, it's round by round and everything. It's much
a lot less
harder
time in Valorant to like understand how to use your abilities. Like if you get caught out, it's like getting caught out with a nade in CS, like in the open, except like with a million different abilities. So it's like a lot harder to. It's like interesting because in Overwatch, I would say like TF2 players had like a pretty big leg up in the beginning of Overwatch, but it wasn't in a way that it is in Valorant. I think like there are some like key tenets to playing like a game like CS that people don't know, like just like simple things like trade fragging. Like there are a lot of people that don't understand what that is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, you're walking in, you're like clearing angles, you die to someone, and then your teammate behind you doesn't instantly trade it, and you're like, what is happening? And like small things like that like are huge in this game, and Overwatch didn't really have that. Like there wasn't really like a central tenet that you had to follow. It's just TF2 players had good aim, so we just played well in the beginning, but there was no other like overarching thematical thing that you could follow in that game.
See, I'm so glad that a pro like you finally said it, because every time I die, I'm trying to say to my team, listen, you're supposed to kill after I die. I'm dying on purpose. This is definitely a strategy that I employ. I'm very good at dying. I can die, consistently every round. So thankfully, my team needs to get on my level. So obviously we're talking so much about Valorant because it's the only game on this roadmap that's out. But there's actually tons more. There's League of Legends, a Wild Rift, which is a MOBA. So quick show of hands. How many of you guys have tried to play a MOBA game? Yes? No? No? Okay, yeah. So will it take this game to give you, to finally have you embrace the MOBA as esport? Because I know I'm talking to a lot of FPS crowd here. Will you try this game?
I have played League of Legends once in my life, and that was in 2009 against bots. I'm not gonna play it on my phone. That's just me.
Hard
That's
stop.
just me.
Hard stop.
I'm not a
Do I have to
big,
give in my esports card now? Like I don't know.
I mean, no, but things are changing. If you look at the numbers, like mobile esports is massive, like absolutely massive. And I know that you know these numbers, Fish Sticks, but there's also a point where, you're right. I've been playing games on my console and PC my whole life. Am I really going to look at my phone and see, hardcore, esports experience? Matt, you were saying something about this. How, do you think you're going to try?
I mean, I've never really played much of many MOBA games at all. I played Dota 2 with my friend super casually a long time ago, but I never really dove any deeper than that. Most of my MOBA type thing that I ever play are board games, in real life board games. I've never really been much into that on the computer. I just stick to FPS games and other fighting games, I guess.
But Charmer, you have. So this is going to be your game then. We're going to have our own Wild Rift podcast, you and me. We're going to be the only people here playing it.
I mean, I'm certainly going to try it. I'll try anything once. The mobile game that I had tried was Vainglory, because when I was casting the Elder Scrolls Legends Master Series out of ESL Studios in LA, there was a weekend where they were also doing the Vainglory World Championships, and it was enough for me to say, all right, I'll check it out. And it was fun, but I think that the disconnect with most mobile games is that I think a lot of folks use those as their relaxation games. You're lounging around the house, maybe you pull something up on the tablet, you're on the train or a commute to work, so you try it there. And doing something that's fast paced as your mobile game or your kind of esports title, I don't think resonates at the same level. But we have seen a rise in it. I mean, obviously Vainglory was having a world championship, so there was some sort of audience for it. And we know that Fortnite is on phones now, PUBG is mobile as well, so it's growing. Being a mobile friendly game also gets you into several other markets where maybe a full big gaming PC isn't necessary for you to compete. So it could be something that's on the rise. I'm certainly going to try the game out, and I love League, so I'm willing to check out Wild Rift when it comes, for sure.
So I'm actually really glad that you brought up the somewhat a nuanced point of getting into other markets, because mobile games is just not really a Western thing, especially if you're talking American esports fans. We just don't really consider the mobile platform something we want to compete on. However, if you go over to China, if you go over to Japan, if you go over to Korea, I mean, it's just culturally an entirely different place, and you see it all the time. You see rows of kids after school all sitting on the same bench playing mobile games, and they're they are grinding. There's entire LAN centers that are whole devoted to you just bring your phone. So I think that is a really good point. I think no matter what, we know League of Legends Wild Rift will be popular, right? It's going to be this huge popular game. But I think maybe as an esport, I would expect it to be big in China. Fish Sticks, do you think, just in terms of the industry side, is Juked ever going to try to do something with mobile esports at all in terms of League of Legends?
Well, if you're listening to this and you know mobile esports really well, let's talk, because
there you go.
It's a bit of a blind spot for us, but 100%. I mean, there are 100 million PUBG mobile players in India alone. It's a big genre for gaming. It's a big genre for esports in different regions. So I wouldn't necessarily expect that it's going to penetrate the West. Not soon. There's certain people who are convinced that it's going to be bigger than all other esports in the next 10 years, but I don't think so. But certainly in China, certainly in India, probably other parts of Southeast Asia, Yeah, and we want to have it on June, of course.
So shout outs to India. I on our site mglobal.com we actually just wrote about a tournament. There's a Valorant tournament going on in India, and it's completely open for anyone in India to sign up for. But that just really goes to say how I was giving Riot a praise before by opening up the community to it. Now we are seeing a Valorant is already an international esport because there are people putting on tournaments literally everywhere. There's tournaments in Brazil. There are tournaments in India. So that's cool. Moving forward, because I'm just looking at this roadmap update. I'm most excited for one game in particular, and that is Project L. So I'm going to skip the 4 other things, but maybe just for clarity, there's a LOL esports manager, which is really fun if you've ever been into those type of sports games, the type of sports games where you can manage a football team or manage a soccer team or manage a football team if you're in Europe. Those are actually really, really popular. I actually saw some of the numbers of how many people play those FIFA type managing teams, and it's huge. I've personally never done it. I've really never been into fantasy football or anything like that. But I've heard that is exactly what this LoL Esports Manager is. So, are there any fantasy fans here? No? Yes?
Yes. Yeah.
Really?
Not only am I a really big fantasy football fan, I've done the League of Legends fantasy leagues, and when I was in college, we used to run Madden leagues where we were strictly GMs because there wasn't the American football equivalent. So I'm definitely part of that target audience as well. Like I said, I'll try anything once. So.
You'll try anything. Nice. All right. So actually, the other thing that I should make clear is these aren't all games. If you look at the Riot roadmap, they actually have some sort of movie or cinematic world called Arcane. Now, this is, I think, great for all of the lore-friendly players, the people who maybe do want lore, but maybe not in Valorant. But Kate, this question is for you because I know out of all of our panelists, you and I are probably, or maybe we're probably the biggest Blizzard, BlizzCon people, right? We would go to those things and we'd really love it, the whole world, the whole universe. Are you excited in any way, shape, or form for the fact that Riot and its IPs are trying to bite into that world? This is the world of gamers who love these cinematics, who cry when they see Thrall holding holding his Doomhammer. This whole hype, I honestly believe this is why we're seeing stuff like Arcane. What do you think about that? Do you think that's a real chance for Riot to compete with Blizzard in terms of its fan hype?
I mean, I'd like to see that. I feel like Riot fans are big pretty much. I mean, people who love League, they love it so much. So I'd like to see. I don't know if it's the level of crying. I used to cry when I saw Blizzard cinematics and stuff. I mean, I still do. Nothing has changed, but it'll be interesting. It's gonna take some. I feel I don't know. Maybe they've been asking. I'm not really a Riot fangirl.
Yeah.
I've never really liked League. I think I played 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I know when I'm bad at games and MOBAs are not my thing.
Have you played fighting games at all? Have you ever dived in fighting games, or have you stuck to
when
FPS?
I'm drunk and people are let's play Mortal Kombat. I'm I'm the best!
Of course.
But no, not really. So I just really stick to FPS.
So I have, though. I have played a lot of fighting games. I'll say right now, I will challenge every single one of you to any, and please mark my words, any Street Fighter game ever made. I open challenge all of you to it, and I have high hopes that I'll win. I'll even put money behind it. So when I heard about Project L, and finally my fighting game experience, my fighting game background can maybe one day join the upper echelons of tier 1 esports. And I know that Street Fighter's huge. I know that Melee is huge, but they've never enjoyed the amount of success, both commercially and both culturally, that PC games, that MOBAs, that FPS have. So for me and many other fighting game people who, with love in our hearts, describe the fighting game community as poverty, right? Really, we say this with love in our hearts. I'm very excited for Project L. So has anyone seen some of the trailers for Riot's next fighting game?
Actually, haven't at all. Yeah, I've never really. There's like a divide within the fighting game community, right? Because I'm
yeah.
really only a melee player,
Yeah, there
which
is.
isn't really like a true fighting game.
Oh, no
So,
way, no. Okay,
I mean,
listen.
it is.
If we want to have
But
that debate here, I'll have it. Melee's a
there
fighting
are people
game.
who don't really ascribe to that idea that it is a real fighting. I've never really played. I mean, I've played
true.
Street Fighter, but I've never really played those types of games. I've
So
never been
fish
good at
sticks.
them. I've never
Do you think
tried.
Melee is a fighting game?
Or
Or is it a party game? It's a party game?
No, Smash is its own genre. I think
I see.
Yeah.
there's parallels, obviously, but like platform, they call it platform fighters,
platform
but
fighter.
really just Smash, the Smash genre.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't get me wrong, I love Ultimate, I love Melee, I love fighting games. I've always loved fighting games. I can't wait for Riot's take. Obviously, they've got some really well-known, really super old school people over there. The Cannon brothers are helping them build their new fighting game. I think it's super fascinating because to this date, we've never seen a major Western publisher outside of really Mortal Kombat and Warner Bros. Take a stab at doing a fighting game, and no one's ever done like a PC focused fighting game.
Yeah.
That's been big. I think Killer Instinct kind of fits that, but I'm crazy excited for this because I love. I always love a bit more of the hipster esports, and Street Fighter, Melee are my shit. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on this.
No,
stream,
come
my
on.
bad.
Come on. Street
But
Fighter's
yeah,
the
so-
shit. Street Fighter is the shit. I can.
And by the
We
way,
can
I
allow
like
it.
that you like in the fighting game community fashion just all challenged us to a money match.
Yes, I did. That
I'll
is so
only
fighting
take it in
game.
Melee.
Oh,
I'll
yeah,
only
okay.
take it in
I will
Melee.
say that Matt is no joke when it comes to Melee. The
He's a Melee
guys,
player.
the guy's a beast. So actually, here's just some trivia about Project L. So apparently, this isn't apparently, this is true. There was a game called Rising Thunder. Has anyone played Rising Thunder?
No,
But
this
well,
is what.
So,
yeah.
so I have. It was an amazing game. I fell in love with Rising Thunder, and sure enough, it was for the PC, and it was so good, guys. It was so good. Personally, I thought it was so good is because it borrowed the control scheme of Melee in that there were B moves, as in like up B, over B, down B. There were no execution. You didn't have to do fireballs and shoryukens. And all of your abilities had cooldowns, kind of like a MOBA. So now this type of game design, I think it really started with, Skullgirls was a real big innovator when it came to kind of some of the execution shortcuts you could do. And I know that there's a game called a Grand Blue Fantasy Versus. But why this is so important is because Riot took a Rising Thunder, and that is now a Project L. So a Project L will have a simplified Super Smash Bros.-esque control scheme. There will be things like you can dodge and things like maybe, like you can roll, or so I've heard. And I know there's going to be at least some a parallel. So with that being said, to our resident Melee expert here, do you think that a game that is backed by Riot, that I think takes the best part of Melee and Smash Brothers, is in that you can do the moves so easily, do you think that this game will finally be the thing to take fighting games out of its, out of the basement and on to the main stage of mainstream? Like I'm talking huge Twitch views, huge influencers, all that. Do you think this has the potential?
I don't know. Melee's always been such an enigma to me because it is so it is all grassroots. Like from when I started watching Melee in 2005.
Yep.
And it was still grassroots back then. It was still pretty huge,
Yeah.
So it's weird. I don't really know. I can't read the community in fighting games that often or that well because I feel like they want depth so badly. Like Melee especially is something that you play Melee, you can't go to Brawl or Smash 4 or Smash Ultimate. It just feels really slow and mushy.
Yeah.
That's a lot of the community's opinion. So if this new game is similar to that in the sense that it moves kind of slowly and things are kind of floaty and you can't really get the speed that you're looking for, I don't really know how many Melee players specifically would be interested in a game like that. So I don't really know. I mean,
Maybe
it's hard
Ultimate
to gauge.
players, right? I'm sure Ultimate players, right? I'm sure there's
I think it would be more of a
an
new
overlap.
school type game. you know,
Yeah,
for
for
like
sure.
people who are like into like those platform fighting games and
Yeah.
like the newer school fighting games that aren't looking for, you know, one frame inputs where, you know, you get arthritis after,
But they're
you know, 5
so
years.
fun. Why
But they are
wouldn't you
really
want to
fun,
do a
yeah.
one
So
frame input?
it's tough. I don't know. It's hard to read because I
Yeah.
do think that the fighting game community is like a very fighting games are so interesting, and they're always like party games. You know, like
Yeah,
people
yeah,
tend to love them on like a very casual level. So
yeah.
like you would think that there'd be a really huge esports scene around it because you take something that everyone knows
It's like
and
it's
you
like
can
there
make something big out of it.
is, but there isn't. I actually think this is a topic that all of us has touched on at least once here, in this concept of, you know, people love one certain game, whether it's a CS 1.6 and they identify, oh, I like Valorant because it's similar to this. I believe Kate made that point. Or
Mhm.
whether it's Fishstick saying that, you know, whenever there's a new game, there's tons of people that just jump on it. For me, personally, it seems as if the reason the fighting game community hasn't ever grown is because like we fall in love with games too much. Like like there is a huge group of players that still play Street Fighter Third Strike, and that's it. They're not going to find a new game. You're never going to be able to convince them that, you know, that the new Street Fighter is as good. So it's like every time there's a new fighting game, we all don't just kind of jump ship like PC gamers do. It's like, nope, there's still people playing Street Fighter 5 and there's still people playing Dragon Ball Z Fighters. So I think that is some honest resistance that Project L might find. I think Project L was, you know, definitely going after a PC gamers who, sure, maybe this will be their first fighting game. I think that's the upside, kind of to what you just mentioned. This definitely has the potential to be a new generation game, and sure, maybe it'll be like the fighting game version of Fortnite, and that, you know, every fighting game player is like, oh really, you play Project L with its simplified controls and its easy
Yeah.
Who knows, right? But it's going to be popular, I think,
Well,
for sure.
I think the one thing that like it will have that other fighting games don't, I just think the way that, you know, like PC games, especially the games that are made by like Riot, Blizzard, you know, Valve, whatever, they're like there for the long haul. Like
Yep.
like a lot of fighting games are console games, right? So like you make new ones every however many years,
Yeah.
and so you can never really pick up and like form like a solo like this is the game and this is the esport that we're playing. Like it happened with Melee a ton of times, and you know Nintendo did pretty much nothing to help
Yep.
with the competitive scene for a game like Melee, so it could never really take off. And I think it's even happening now. I mean, I don't really follow the scene too much in Ultimate, but I think
Yeah.
there's like a paucity of tournaments, I would say, right, in that game. Like, there's not really much going on.
Yeah, there
So
was
I think, like,
a league, but the whole COVID thing that kind
yeah,
of shut that down.
yeah. So I mean, like, maybe like this would be a good solution because, you know, like it's a PC game. It'll probably be there for the long haul. There'll be updates. It'll be around for a while. So
Yeah.
um,
So, you know,
it'll probably foster an esports scene.
we're all esports people in this call. This is something that I often have to like remind our team of writers at Inland Global, because like sometimes it's easy to forget how like plugged in you are with gaming as compared to just your average consumer or just your average gamer, right? So like when it comes to us knowing about esports, it's high. And I think it's interesting that we really haven't been talking about Respawn, or we really haven't talking about Apex Legends, or we really haven't been talking about Fortnite much in the past a couple months. Why do you think that is? Because I remember, you know, like months ago, seems as if Apex Legends was just the greatest game on the planet. Now, a lot of the hype that I saw then, it kind of reminds me of the hype I see now for Valorant and, dare I say, some of these Riot games. I mean, you know, like it's such an ambitious and cool thing. Everyone's so excited about it. Do you think there's a chance this will go? And again, I'm not saying that Apex Legends is like dead game. I hate that phrase, but it's definitely not. It's not dominating headlines like it used to. So I'd be interested in your guys' opinion of that, about just the hype of these games.
It feels the same of when Apex came out. Like I remember being really excited when Apex came out, and thinking like this was really going to change the game. But I also think people are really, really tired of battle royale games, like so much. But Apex didn't listen. They didn't like listen to their feedback, and they kind of just they did it to themselves.
Really?
And I feel like Riot is definitely going to listen and be a lot more involved with what players are saying.
And what do you think, Fish Sticks? It looked like you had something to say there, or maybe.
No, I mean, I think games like Apex can still succeed. I don't think Valorant inhibits them from succeeding. Although I will say, Juked, we hosted basically the first open tournament for Valorant last weekend. And I was asking the people who were signing up, like, where are you from? And everyone's like, either former PUBG semi-pros or Apex semi-pros, which was kind of funny to see.
Most of the people, right?
Yeah.
A lot of them. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I see plenty of room for multiple FPS games to succeed. I don't think Rainbow Six is going anywhere. I think Overwatch is not. If they're going down on a downward trend, it's not because of Valorant. It's their own making for that one.
Interesting.
So that's kind of my take.
Charmer, I believe you were about to say something to that. I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to echo what he said, which was that I think that many of those games have a really big fanfare and hype when they're first released because everybody's kind of enjoying it and it's fresh. And then what happens is it kind of dies down and your people who are invested stay invested. And they're going to be around for a while. And right now we're still in that honeymoon phase with Valorant, and that's part of it. But I do also think that Valorant has a bit of a leg up as far as maintaining some of that momentum simply because they very quickly released their requirements for holding community-based tournaments and things like that. And they also, even though it's not the best right now, and I will fully admit that, they did at least launch with a spectator mode. And as somebody who, as a freelance caster, I did some Apex Legends events very early on after launch. It was very difficult to do community-based events and host them because you had to essentially require your participants to stream it for you to cover it. And with Valorant, at least having the ability to do these custom lobbies and have even a bare bones spectator mode, that goes miles for letting you organize things and keep people invested for longer periods, in my opinion.
Yeah. I'll even have to check myself in terms of my understanding of the way that esports both grow and wane in popularity. Personally, I think because esports has gotten so mainstream and because esports has gotten so massive, it's very easy to fall into an older narrative that at one point was very real. And that older narrative is we maybe have room for 5 esports? Like maybe 5 real esports in terms of getting the sponsors, getting the money, actually paying pro players. That used to be a thing. But I think you guys are making some really great points and I think we've reached the point where, yes, because of streamers playing the new game, it's very easy to see, Valorant's the only game in the world right now because I'm literally seeing it constantly. Everyone's talking about it. I think it's important to talk. I'm pretty sure Apex Legends still has millions of players, right? There's still tons and tons of people playing that game. And this goes the same for World of Warcraft, even though everyone constantly dunks on that game. Nope, still has millions and millions of people. So I think too, as we move forward and try to assess what are the esports that have potential, it's now pretty standard to have an esports scene. Now, is it the most thriving one? Is it the one in which people are going on, national TV talking about? No. And I think Fortnite had that attention for a while, but you really don't see it that often anymore. You don't see Fortnite players making waves. Dare I say, when's the last time I saw a meme that featured a Fortnite dance? That's saying something, right? That used to be everywhere. And I used to speak at high schools, and all these kids would do Fortnite dances. You wouldn't believe it. It's it's all they know. So maybe culture is changing a bit. So moving on from the fighting game, there's 2 more things that I think are really, in terms of games, that I think may have a big impact. For one, there's the tabletop. And I know that I believe it was Charmer and Matt, you guys mentioned, we're both tabletop fans, right?
Yeah, I mean, my friends more so than I am, but when I hang out with my friends in real life, that's what we do. Tabletop, from games that are really, what's I don't remember the name of it, but some pretty in depth. Tabletop games I've played before in my life.
I have. I'm looking at my collection of tabletop games now. I'm to my left, and I can divide them into 2 types of categories. There are the fun, social games that everyone has fun playing, and then there's the games I like, and which are way too big. The box is way too big. It's way too dense, and you have to have 5 competitive losers like me spend, like 8 hours and we finally, like defeated someone. So these big long board games. Now, I'd be interested in what type of game the Riot, a tabletop, Tellstones is. Now, like, I'll be honest, I don't know much about this game. All I know is that I think it's pretty ambitious, and this kind of reminds me of the World of Warcraft card game, if any of you remember that. That was really cool. And
Oh my! I was
Yeah,
just
right?
talking about that. I hosted the championship. Remember in Paris when I did that? Do you remember that?
yes, this
I
was
know.
wow, time flies. But yes,
Long time ago.
so there is precedent of a major developer saying, I want to enter the tabletop space. Now, personally, I think this is a culture war. I think if Riot made tons of money off this tabletop, I think that would be a huge surprise for them. Like, it'd be a happy surprise if all of a sudden this tabletop game was like the next, like, Secret Hitler, and like that board game was literally sold out everywhere. Like, that's like, it's very rare that you have a board game that's sold out. But I think if Riot is trying to do, I think they're trying to enter into this area of nerddom, of nerd culture, right? There's this entire group of people that buy dice and they paint miniatures. And currently there are some companies that dominate that space simply because they have games that come from that. There's Warhammer, there's the Warcraft universe to some extent. So the question, I suppose, do any of you who have no interest in board games or tabletop games, now that you see there's a Riot one with maybe some characters you'd recognize, is there any interest in breaking out some dice and a big wooden table and playing board games with your friends?
My girlfriend, or I make fun of myself, but my girlfriend makes fun of me too because I have no desire to learn new games at all. My brain is bad, so
Yeah.
probably not. Man, I'm the worst.
So, by the way, that's the most like esport thing ever, though. Like, really, I feel as if you talk to someone who's worked in esports for like long enough, you're like, I'm sick of learning new games. I've like fallen in love with 4, and then I still watch Warcraft 3 esports constantly, and it's so funny because they're so small and no one cares anymore. But there was once a point in which Warcraft 3 was the biggest esport in the world. Crazy to think that, right? But there we are. So, Kate, do you have any interest in Tellstones, the Riot tabletop game?
I would play it. I mean, I like tabletop games. And I'm kind of in between. Like, I can do the really casual ones and then the ones that. But I also really hate sitting there and learning new games. You kind of touched on all of these points. Like, I don't want to learn something super new, but I guess I will.
Well, it is fair to say that we're probably not the audience for this. I view the D&D players, right? We've all seen the cultural explosion of D&D. This used to be the punchline in bad sitcoms in 2000, and now it's like, some of the most trending new media and its influencers and celebrities are playing D&D to sold out stadium crowds. It's crazy, right? Like, you've seen that stuff. It's absolutely nuts. So, good on you, Riot. I think it's a smart idea. Like, who's ever in charge of like their strategic, like what markets to get for, I think the D&D one is good. And lastly, Project F, I don't know why it's called Project F, maybe it's because it's last on their list, is an RPG. Think of this like your Diablo, right? Think of this as, what's that other one that's really popular that competes with Diablo?
Path of Exile.
Yes,
Exile?
yes, Path of Exile. Oh, you're not a fan of PoE.
No, I don't. I mean, I like played. I don't know.
Okay.
Am I just I just like FPS games. I think I just.
That's fine. No, listen, this is
Oh,
a very
wow.
common thing in esports. This is super common. You find your genre and stay. But I think a part of why this roadmap in my world, in terms of esports news, has dominated is because it's very rare that someone, in terms of a developer that has succeeded in a genre, would have such an ambitious lineup, I mean, if, I don't know, a Valve came out and said they're going to release a MOBA, I'd have questions. I'd be like, are you sure you know what you're doing there? Like, do you sure you know how to make a MOBA and balance it and make it good? But it seems as if no one's really having those questions for Riot. Everyone seems to be pretty hopeful. I'm hopeful about a Project L. I'm hopeful about Project F. So I guess as we conclude in kind of the last minutes of this panel that has tried to cover all of the basis and how Riot and its whole new roadmap will kind of adjust the esports industry, what do you guys think of all of this? What do you think is Riot's biggest opportunity? What do you think is the thing that Riot may, win the most at? And if I may, what do you think is the area that they're probably gonna not see success? Like, of all of these offerings, what do you think is the one that's gonna be the biggest dud? Because one of them has to be, right? And I'll start that off with Charmer. You get the hot seat.
So the quick answer to the one that I think will see the least amount of success is probably the esports manager, simply because it's a very niche genre, and then on top of that, you're targeting a very niche audience. It's got to be people already into League of Legends, into esports, and also likes that particular game type. I think that it's going to have the least amount of appeal. But as far as what I think Riot's going to win at, I think you used the best word possible. You said culture and culture war. That's what Riot is doing here. They were Riot Game for 10 years. They are now officially not only just Riot Games, but they are getting into media. And they've kind of been dabbling there for quite a bit when you think about their KDA stuff, right? Their music, the music videos and the things they've been doing. They want to hit you at all fronts. Tellstones, I think, their tabletop game is actually going to be targeting more of the poker crowd, personally,
really?
because it's described as a perfect information bidding game. In terms of your traditional tabletop games, they actually already have one. It's called Mechs vs. Minions, and that targets people like you and me, Nick, that like board games that take longer to set up than they do to play. I'm definitely in that crowd.
That's
I love anything Fantasy Flight produces, but they've already hit those markets. I think that what they're trying to do is get culturally ingrained with every level of person, and then give them avenues to get back to their other products. By making these Tellstones and Mechs vs. Minions, if you go to Gen Con, hey, now I can play a Riot game, and then maybe I'll check out their other stuff. Do I like mobile games? Great. We've got Teamfight Tactics, Legends of Runeterra soon, Wild Rift. That's my avenue to other Riot games.
And I'll be able to recognize the characters, and I'll be able to know the world.
I think that this is 100% their marketing strategy, and I think that's what they're going to kill it at. I don't think any one of these needs to be the number one commercial success in their genre, but if it's top 5 even, and it all leads back to Riot's winning.
Yeah. And you know what? This is also, the Hearthstone strategy. Hearthstone was not an officially a made title in Blizzard. This was just the project of someone that he was doing, in the middle of his work on working for Blizzard. So, you really don't know what game is going to be a hit. So that is a very good point. Not all of these have to be success. By the way, have you ever played a game, what's it called? Talisman? Have you ever played a game called Talisman?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have.
Okay. Yeah. Well, maybe we should play one day, because I have the digital version. It's so much fun. Anyways, Clockwork, what do you think is going to be the offering of this that has the biggest upside?
Yeah, I think that not only do they use their community well, like in their outreach for every single type of gamer is very good. But I mean, I don't personally know what they're doing with Project L or F, but from what they've done with Valorant, they're using their community to build their game extremely well. Like if you look at the people who have, helped with the development of Valorant, like people like Volcano and all these people who've been streaming and have, now everyone knows who they are. They're like tenured FPS players. They're people who put a lot of time into FPS games and know exactly how a game like CS works. And so designing Valorant, you can already tell closed beta, even in alpha, I'm sure it was amazing. The way the game is played from a competitive standpoint is really, really top notch, as opposed to some other games in the past.
Yeah, some other games. Do you have any experience with other games that you may have been dissatisfied in how the developer used their community?
I think for example, I don't think Blizzard used their community very well at all. When they were designing Overwatch, they were balancing the game. In closed beta, it was really nothing changed in the way that anyone from the pro community wanted it to be changed. I remember, pretty much all our Discord conversations were, they never amounted to anything.
I think you're forgetting coin flips.
Oh yeah, coin flips. Everyone wanted coin flips. Yeah.
Or a even stopwatch.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't think that they've been
Wait. I'm sorry. Someone just said the phrase coin flips, and there was no context. What? Can you please explain what coin flips?
Oh, it was like it was a forever competitive match, right? Matchmaking. Like if there was a tie, like a coin would just flip on your screen essentially.
They
And
didn't.
then, like the team would win.
Yeah, like before basically the current way that the game is played, it was just a matter of could you complete the map, and then like if both teams completed the map, then they would just play the first point, and whichever team won that first point or held the first point would just win, and it was just the most unbalanced.
Yeah, it was a coin flip for sides, right?
Yeah,
yeah, pretty much. Because some sides were easier to defend, easier to attack. Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think like from the ground up, the way Riot is at the very least handling Valorant is really, really good.
Nice.
There's a lot of like competitive backbone to it.
Yes.
And I would imagine that they're probably doing the same thing with their other games, or I think that they should, because there's a wealth of knowledge, in the world of esports for people
for
to
sure
help with the development of a game that's going to be competitive. So
for sure, yeah, for sure. And Fishsticks, I asked you the same question.
I don't know if I can speak confidently to the card games potential. I don't really play those. Mobile MOBA seems like it has crazy potential, especially with Tencent backing. I think Valorant, though, I will have to second Valorant being probably the number one with the most potential, because look at Counter-Strike, look at Overwatch. These games are huge, and they're coming for that market and then some. I think the moment when they had that reveal trailer, when they talked about tick rates in the first 30 seconds of that video, I almost fell out of my chair. I'm like, oh my God, they're actually building this for the competitive community, which I think is the right way to build a first-person shooter, in my opinion. So, I mean, Riot's just on a domination path right now. They're on a war path because they're about to beat Blizzard in every one of Blizzard's genres. They're about to beat Blizzard in shooters. They're well on the way for card games, teamfight tactics. It's just like they're going to be bigger than Blizzard in like a couple of years at this rate. Maybe they already are. So I think all of these games have a lot of potential, honestly.
So you heard it here, folks. You heard it from Fishsticks. Riot's beating Blizzard. I actually love it. I think just in terms of like news cycles, I don't have like any preference. I just write about the news, and I just have my team write about the news. I haven't been writing much about Blizzard stuff, so maybe they're deep in the tank here. You having some echo there. I can hear myself. Anyways, Kate, I would love to leave the last one to you, and then we actually have a question in chat, so we can have some questions from chat. So, Kate, what do you think of these games? What are you the most excited about? What do you think is the snoozer, and what's the winner?
In all the games that we've talked about?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I'm most excited about Valorant. I think that they've really knocked it out of the park, like, especially like developing a game that is more geared towards not casual players. I think what you said about if you're going to design an FPS, like, let's do that with competitive, that whole realm in mind. So I'm really excited about that. I probably don't really care. What was the fighting game? I don't even remember.
Project L.
Project L.
Yeah. I mean, like, you're like, that community is so like this, and I'm just over here, and
I feel it.
I never really got into that. So,
Kate,
like, have fun.
Kate, I think one day you will try a Project L, and you will have fun, because it's a fun fighting game, and fighting games are great. So, that being said, we actually have a question in chat. Oh, so by the way, to all of our viewers, I guess we're now moving into the question and answers. So if you have any questions, just throw them out in chat and I'll get them answered. So here's one question. Verified Numlock asks, for Kate, do you still see there being much of a cosplay scene in Valorant if Riot does not end up creating much lore, and would you create anything yourself? So here's some context. Kate is a fantastic cosplayer and has made some of the most amazing Overwatch cosplays and Blizzard cosplays before she started, as she was streaming all sorts of content. So this obviously is a cosplay fan. Thank you so much for the question, Verified Numlock. Kate, take it away.
Numlock is actually a professional Overwatch player, but I love that you
call
him a cosplay fan. Like, that's...
Well, I mean, he is. I mean, he
That's
is.
it.
That's what I saw. Like, yeah,
Unlock who?
I guess he's a cosplay fan if he's asking that question in this panel. So, take it away, Kate.
I am making something from Valorant. It took me out of my cosplay retirement because I was really excited. Yeah, so I actually started working on something with my cosplay partner and best friend. But I think that it's this is something that like I'm getting on my little women soapbox, but
Do it.
Riot actually designed females that are like covered, and they actually are wearing things that aren't super slutty and like make sense to go into battle. So I would really like to see some cosplay come out of this. And I think it's just really refreshing. And we're going to see a lot of things, even though there's no lore.
That is true. And I actually say, just as someone who's played Valorant, I really love the voice lines. And I think the overall like attitude, I think you can definitely tell whoever was thinking about how the characters act and talk, they were trying to create characters that weren't, they're not necessarily superheroes. They're not necessarily these like squeaky clean, but they really seem to connect to the gamer, mentality. One of my favorite is when I'm playing a Cypher and I kill someone and he just says deleted. I'm like, that's esports trash talk. I've been telling people that they get deleted all the time. So that's nice. And I think stuff like that, and Kate, what you said too, you can definitely tell that whereas some other big companies have been tone deaf to what the modern gaming or esports competitor fan wants, this game seems to be made from the ground up for that. So thank you so much, Numblocked, for the question. Big cosplay fan in the chat. So anyways, I think that about finishes up. That's all the time we had. I just want to say thank you guys so much for joining me. I personally have learned a lot of really cool perspectives from this. I know that those watching can see where you can follow, but why don't you guys give a quick shout out to maybe some of the stuff you can do and maybe some of the things you want our audiences to follow you guys for. So I guess I'll start. You can follow me at Nick Dorazio 3RD, or you can check out invenglobal.com. We do a podcast every Wednesday. I actually have been putting on my own esports lectures every Tuesday. They're extremely boring, but there is a group of people who seem to be learning a lot from them. So you can check those out on Tuesday. And then, of course, we have our IGEC panel every Friday. So, Matt, why don't you start? Where can people follow you and yeah.
Yeah, so you can follow me on twitter.com/like-clockwork. Like clockwork. Kind of weird. But,
Yeah.
I thought it was.
Oh, no, that's like a phrase.
Verified. No big deal. Whatever.
Verified. Damn it.
Yeah,
How
no
could
big
you
deal.
help me
But,
get verified?
I've been streaming a lot on Twitch as well. Trying to just get better at Valorant and put on some scrims and some
Nice.
just high quality content for people who are interested in getting better and just trying to take the game from a more serious approach. Doing that a lot. Twitch.tv/clockwork. I tweet it out every time I go live. And yeah.
I feel like that was a personal call out. Are you saying that I have to watch your stream because I don't know the basics and fundamentals of this game?
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
yeah. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. All right, Fishsticks, what have you got up your sleeves in terms of esports things?
All I ask is that you head out to juked.gg and check us out. We're trying to really help make it easier to discover and watch the best content in esports. We were covering over 30 games. Really much more than 30 games if you include the random one-off things that we cover whenever we can. So generally, if there's something awesome happening in Valorant or Overwatch or Call of Duty or Dota or Counter-Strike or Rainbow Six or Rocket League or fighting games or Smash, whatever, we're going to have it all in one place, which is, it's hard to find all that information. So give us a look. Consider registering. We have a great newsletter that we send every Thursday that breaks down every single major event happening in the weekends. And I don't do personal shout-outs anymore. This is all I do, so that's it.
Well, and I just want to say Juked is a fantastic resource. Juked has actually been big friends of Invent Global in terms of helping us be a part of some of the awesome tournaments you guys have been putting on, and just overall, you've been a great source for info. So thank you. I don't know where my writers would be if they didn't have Juked to look at and see what's going on in esports. So thank you for that. Charmer, where can people follow you and all the great things you do in esports?
Sure. So if you're watching us now on Twitter, I'm that Charmer, just because Twitter will not give me the dead account. But I'm just Charmer on Twitch and YouTube. That's a great place to find me. Cover a lot of Legends of Runeterra, Teamfight Tactics, though I will admit lately it's been all Valorant all the time. And the best way to see more of me is to ask your local tournament organizers to have me cast or host events, because as a freelancer, word of mouth means everything, and I would really appreciate it.
Cool. Awesome. Well, have you played much Battlegrounds? Hearthstone Battlegrounds?
I have played a little Battlegrounds, but of the auto battlers, it's my least favorite at the moment.
Okay. And never mind. That's definitely not the only one I play. Forget about it. Never mind. Moving on. Kate, where can... Oh, and I think we may have got a confirm of a cosplay. Is this true? Is this happening? Is this the first that you've heard it, guys? Is this happening? And where can people find it?
Well, now that you said it, now I am hard committed. So I guess this is the thing. It's happening. But you can go to my Twitter, which is TinyKate, and I might post progress pictures. I don't know, but same Instagram too, and I post a lot of stuff there.
And do you have any plans to compete once again in Valorant? Because I know Miss Harvey is going to be doing more tournaments.
I would love to. I mean, if I get asked back, we had a lot of fun.
Hey, second place. That's not bad.
It's true, but yeah, I would love to compete in it.
Okay.
So I'm going to be making a costume and playing Valorant.
Okay.
So.
Well, try to get first place, and we can have you back on a panel about the life and struggle of the greatest esports champion to ever live. Thank you so much, Kate.
Perfect.
Guys, this has been tons of fun. Thank you so much for being here. And again, thanks to everyone who was tuning in. We will be back on Friday with another fantastic Invent Global Esports Conference panel. My name has been Nick Durazio, and it still is Nick Durazio. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.